Hello folks, Grazing Acres Farm here. What you're looking at is what we call the lower cistern pasture, or our sacrifice pasture in the fall, winter, and early spring. What you're looking at here, so what a sacrifice pasture is an area or a pasture that is easiest to manage the livestock in these cold and muddy seasons. What you're looking at now is the entrance down there. You can see a couple bales of hay. That's where the hay is delivered. It's the entrance from the road into the farm. So that makes this the easiest pasture to manage livestock or cattle. So you can see it's pretty beat up. Down there you can see lots of mud, lots of bare ground. In the grass-fed world, we're taught bare ground is a no-no. But in this case, it's a little different. You know, normally when we graze in the spring and summer months, there's anywhere from 40 to 60 days rest period for each pasture before we return. Now with the sacrifice pasture, it's a little different. You see, it's been given all this hay and all this fecal matter and stuff from the cattle all winter long, and now it needs time to be able to absorb it, soak it all in, and turn it into something good. So for this particular pasture, it could be 60, it could be 70, it could be 90 days before we graze it. But what I did yesterday to help maybe make that a little sooner before we graze is I took a drag, just a simple gate with a cattle panel welded to it, and hooked it up here to my ATV, and I drug it around this pasture. Now I'm going to pull up a picture right here and show you what it looked like yesterday before I used the drag. You're going to notice cow pies everywhere. You're going to be able to see where we bale grazed. But now that you look, you're going to have a hard time finding a single cow pie. And the reason for that being is the drag yesterday spread all that stuff out nice and thin across the fields. So let me find one here and I'll give you a good, for instance, what I'm talking about here. Okay, so if we look close, we can see that there used to be a dried cow pie right in this area. Well, now instead of all of that nitrogen absorbing right here into the soil, it's all stretched out. So it's going to fertilize a lot more of an area. The other thing it's going to do is it's going to make this a lot more enjoyable for the cattle when they come in. You see, normally what happens is after the cattle have pooped and peed in certain areas, the next time they come back to that pasture, they usually do not graze those areas. I imagine that the fecal matter and the pee probably play a huge toll in the flavor of the grass. So by spreading it out, there's not going to be that large clump of cow poop soaking into just that one area. So maybe by spreading it out thinner, this will all be more palatable for the cattle when they come in here to graze. They won't be grazing here, grazing here, grazing here. Hopefully, they'll go across it and graze it more evenly. Now, if not, well, then I feel positive for spreading out this manure and spreading out these hay piles a little bit. That's got to do it some justice in the long run. And if it doesn't help the cattle, it doesn't help the cattle, but it will help the pasture. Now, as far as this being a sacrifice pasture, I know a lot of you are probably thinking, well, what's that look like midsummer? Amazing. It's just amazing what it looks like. I'm going to pull up a picture. I don't have one from last year, but I have one from 2 years ago. And when we entered this field, the grass was every bit of 4 to 5 feet tall. I know down there You can see we have boards around the top of the fixed wired fence. The grass, some of it, was taller than those boards down there at the top of the fence. So anyway, I'm going to overlap a picture right here and show you what that looked like. Now keep in mind, it did take a longer rest period for it to get to this point, but it still worked out. All we had to do was skip this pasture. Now, let me tell you, this pasture isn't really that big. It goes to the tree line down here. Clear down there, there's a gate, and the fence line is on this side of that driveway right there. It comes all the way up through. I believe, and I can't say for sure right off the top of my head, but I think this one's 5 acres. So it's not real big. Now, just over the hill on this side of the fence is what we call the upper cistern, and it's just because all of our well components are down in that cistern hole. We got our air tank and all that good stuff down in there. So this is where the cattle are now. You can see they're eating on a freshly unrolled bale of hay, and things are good. Now this is where they will stay until everything greens up nice and we're able to start grazing. This will let all the other areas that we've grazed, which would be this area, you can see that hillside back there. That's where we spent a majority of the winter unrolling bales and bale grazing on that hillside. So those areas will get rest and start to rejuvenate and hopefully be ready to graze by midsummer. So we'll keep them in here, and once they do start to graze, I will then move in here and spread out all these cow pies and all this hay and make this field look just as nice as what this does now that everything's spread out. So I hope this has been informative to you. If you have any questions about the sacrifice pasture, please leave them down in the comments. If you like the video, throw me a big thumbs up. That'll help boost it in the YouTube search ranks and make it easier for other grazers to find. If you haven't subscribed, please do so, and make sure you click on that little bell up in the corner so that you get notified when I release new videos. Thanks for watching.